Welcome to Consider the Confession, a brief discussion of matters about and within the Second London Baptist Confession of Faith. My name is Fred Pugh. I am chairman of the Board of Trustees of the International Reformed Baptist Seminary, and I'm here again today with Dr. James Renihan. Hello again, Dr. Renihan.
Hello, Fred.
Dr. Renihan, as we've been discussing the First London Confession of Faith, especially as it lays the groundwork for the Second London Confession of Faith, we've come to the area dealing with the civil magistrate. And in Articles 48 and 49, there are some differences in the three different editions of the First London Confession. And I wonder if you might comment on why there are the differences and if those differences are important.
Yes, they are important, but they flow out of the political realities of the day. You know, we keep going back to to talk about these things.
Sure.
But the political circumstances between these 7 years are very different each time. 1644, the first time that Parliament demands of them a statement, Parliament is at war with the king. And though they lived in London and Parliament was the dominant force in London, they purposely are not rejecting the king. They don't know what will come in the future. So they want to phrase themselves in such a way that they can live with whatever the circumstances might be. 14 months later, 1646, Parliament is winning the war. And now the political circumstances are changing. And so the way that they phrase themselves reflects the fact that Parliament appears to be on the verge of conquering the king. That still is a very uncertain future because at this point, there's no thought of putting the king on trial and executing him. But what will the future hold? And so because they believe that God has given king and parliament as the governing body, they express themselves in such a way that they can fit within, hopefully, a return to the previous system with adjustments, without the king having as much power as he had before, and Parliament having more power, but still a shared civil government between the two. By the time you get to 1651, the king has been executed.
Sure.
And now it's very different again because we spoke in one of our previous sessions about the fact that England struggled to find a political system that would work without king and parliament together. And it was a stop and start process for a decade or more. So in 1651, without a king upon the throne, they have to express themselves now in such a way that will meet the current political circumstances. So in this case, the political theory of the Confession of Faith is shifting somewhat in response to the shifting circumstances of the world around them.
Did they see any kind of contradiction in the differences that they were making?
I don't think so. I think we have to be careful there. They're not changing their theology, but they are responding to the circumstances that are around them.
Fitting their action to the theology.
Right, yeah. I mean, the Bible doesn't speak about a political system of king and parliament, does it? And it does speak about kings and rulers, and so they want to be sympathetic to that. We've already seen how they brought the three classic New Testament passages that deal with our relationship to those who are over us into the language of the confession itself. So they're really trying to follow closely with what the Bible says. But at the same time, they're asking the question, and it's a valid question anywhere. How do we apply what the Bible says to the circumstances we have today? You know, here in the United States, we have a republic, a democratic republic. How do we as Christians fit into that? Because the Bible doesn't give us a blueprint for that system of political, the civil magistrate political power.
Right.
So they're struggling, and I appreciate the fact that they're changing in these three because the real life circumstances that they faced were different in all three of those periods.
Sure, and it even complicates it for us today because we don't have a king.
That's right. Yeah, one of the realities of this confession as opposed to Second London is that it very explicitly speaks about the king
Right.
in several places, and it says that we submit ourselves to the king, where the Second London doesn't. It uses the language of a king or commonwealth, a kingdom or commonwealth.
Right.
Actually, the word commonwealth appears in here as well. So the Second London gives the possibility of other political structures rather
Sure.
than king and parliament, where this one is more focused on the reality that was in London at the time. But that's why you see changes.
Sure.
And I'm thankful for them.
Yeah.
They don't change their doctrine, but they recognize that the doctrine has to be applied differently based upon the circumstances in which they live.
Very, very helpful. Thank you, Dr. Renihan.
You're welcome.